Welcome to Ukraine panel today. And I'm glad to welcome everyone here in CB World Water Week 2024. Our session is opening right now, and my name is Inna Vinichuk. I'm war specialist within UNICEF Ukraine, and I'll be moderating today's session. Our topic is Unpacking Resilience, Navigating with Humanitarian-Development Nexus for Water Supply. This year's theme is Bridging Borders. Water for a peaceful and sustainable future reminds us of a crucial role of water, which is playing in our lives, actually. And on that note, I would like to hand over this panel to host of the session, Mr. Nicholas Osbert, who is actually WASH Chief for Ukraine, UNICEF. And Nicholas, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ina. Hi, everyone. Indeed, on behalf of UNICEF Ukraine Country Office, I'm delighted to host this session on navigating the humanitarian to early recovery nexus in the water and sanitation sector.
Recording in progress.
So, really delighted we bring together representatives from the government of Ukraine, Ministry for Restoration and Infrastructure, Ministry of Environment. Unfortunately, Mr. Shkurakov, the minister, had another appointment, but he's replaced by one of the director of water, Ms. Irina. Warm welcome. And we also have humanitarian and development partners in the room. Grateful for your presence. Young delegates, the mayor of Mykolaiv, Mr. Sienkevich, the director of Zaporizhia Water Utility, Mr. Bazansky, and our network of partners and experts. So we wanted to host this session at World Water Week as what is happening in Ukraine under this very brutal conflict is quite extraordinary. It deserves some visibility, and people around the globe should know how the government and its partners, communities, young people, and the technical services come together with the humanitarian and development partners to address the critical challenges to maintain WASH services under this war. So we hope that this session will contribute to strengthen and expand these critical partnerships, which are really crucial on the ground and very much required. What's happening on the ground precisely, the country is still under heavy attacks and heavy emergencies. As we speak, the whole city of Pokrovsk is being evacuated. Water and sanitation infrastructure are being damaged in all regions close to the front line. The environment is also being hit in a big way, particularly the water resources by the destruction of hydraulic works like the Kakhovka Dam, but also by increased levels of contamination of water body due to the war. At the same time, and it's quite difficult to understand from abroad, the hope in Ukraine comes from the perspective of the EU accession. And the whole country is behind this critical agenda. This path requires in-depth institutional reforms, changing the technologies, massive capacity development to support Ukraine to shift from the Soviet footprint in the sector to the best standards of EU and the best practices as well. This is all happening concurrently, the big emergency and a big effort for the recovery and institutional reform. And this is what this session is about. So we hope you will find it insightful. And we also hope to learn a lot from this session for our work on the ground in Ukraine. With this, thank you so much, Ina. Back to you for the moderation of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. And on that note, we want to turn our focus on Ukraine, a country which has faced with unprecedented challenges since of 2022. The ongoing conflict had a profound impact on Ukrainians' water infrastructure and millions of people's access to the safe drinking water and sanitation. This session will explore how Ukraine is navigating within the nexus, humanitarian, and response to long-term development in the sector. To kickstart the session, actually, I would like to present you a small film which will show you the context of Ukrainian situation at this point.
Shall we do it now?
Yes, so
Okay.
this session is going to be translated. So if you want to hear a translation and not the language being shown on the screen, you have to download the Interpretify app through the QR code that's going to be shown, and you have to use headphones and listen to that translation.
So we are going to have 2 speakers online speaking in Ukrainian. And for some reason, it's not possible to hear the translation in the room. So if you want to hear them in English, you need to download the app and listen with headphones. I will tell you in advance who is going to speak in Ukrainian. Sorry about this.
Okay. I guess all set.
What?
All set.
Okay, so maybe we can start if you're all okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marion Chambard, working from SDC and working for the WASH cluster in Ukraine. Let me start by sharing with you a picture from the ICRC 2015 about the cumulative impact of a conflict on the water sector. And let me illustrate with a typical Ukrainian example. Imagine a small city where water supply relies on a pump from the 1980s. Because of the constant attack on the infrastructure, this pump and the constant power cut, this pump has to be repaired every day. But half of the specialists are not working there anymore because they are mobilized. No more spare part because these pumps come from Belarus. So sooner or later, this pump is going to stop working. And the consequences for the population will accumulate. No more water. It means also maybe no more school, no more business, no more revenue. People start to move. So what can we do to avoid such a situation? You need to understand that it's difficult for humanitarian actors to intervene in a city where you have water 24/7 and where the problem is not directly linked to the conflict. And on the other hand, it's difficult for development actors for many reasons, but also because there is a risk of future destruction. So this session, I hope we can discuss how we can make Ukraine more resilient with the support of the authorities, the municipalities, water utilities, humanitarian actors, and development actors. So I would like to introduce our first panel focusing on humanitarian support to Ukraine water sector with online Irina Perenichuk. She will be speaking Ukrainian. She represents the Ministry of Communities and Development of Infrastructure of Ukraine. David Alford, our WASH cluster coordinator in Ukraine. Sergei Basinski, the director of the regional Voda Canal of Zaporizhia Oblast. And Ina from UNICEF. Irina, please, the floor is yours. She will be speaking Ukrainian.
Дякую. Щиро дякую за можливість звернутися до вас. Цьогорічна тема форуму «Вода для мирного та стабільного майбутнього» є для нашої країни надзвичайно актуальною. Для України, яка захищається під час цієї несправедливої війни, доступ до безпечної води, належних умов санітарії, гігієни є суттєвою потребою. До війни водопровідно-каналізаційне господарство України працювало стабільно, звичайно, із врахуванням викликів, як типові системи пострадянських країн. Це застаріла інфраструктура, енергоємне технологічне обладнання, обмеженість операційних та експлуатаційних можливостей, комунальних споруд. Пріоритетами для нас були модернізація систем, посилення надійності, енергоефективності, усунення регіональних відмінностей у доступі до води та її якості, впровадження реформ для сталого управління водними ресурсами, приведення водного сектору відповідності до європейських стандартів. Проте після масштабного нападу Росії 24 лютого 2022 року критична інфраструктура стала постійною мішенню для російських ракет. Агресор нищить саму можливість жити на наших територіях. Тому ми перейшли від довгострокового та середньострокового розвитку до негайного антикризового управління. Ми робимо все, щоб після обстрілу швидко повернути воду у домівки. Хочу наголосити, що атаки на водні ресурси – це атаки на екологію, здоров'я та економіку держави. В Україні послуги з централізованого водопостачання та водовідведення надають 2360 підприємств. Станом на липень 2024 року агресор пошкодив майже 600 об'єктів інфраструктури водопостачання і водовідведення і знищив 1100 кілометрів мереж водопостачання та водовідведення. За даними ООН, з України були змушені виїхати понад 6 мільйонів осіб. При цьому понад 4,5 мільйонів громадян мусили переїхати всередині країн до більш безпечних місць. Це значно вплинуло на роботу комунальних служб тих регіонів, які прийняли внутрішньо переміщені особи. 10 мільйонів громадян не мають сьогодні доступу до безпечного водопостачання, а 20 мільйонів не мають доступу до послуг централізованого збору та очищення стічних вод. Відповідно до швидкої оцінки збитків та потреб Рендіней-3, втрати сектору водопровідно-каналізаційного господарства на грудень 2023 року сягнули більше 11 мільярдів доларів США. Надзвичайно відчутними для півдня України був підрив агресором Каховської ГЕС у червні 2023 року. В досить короткі терміни ми побудували понад 150 кілометрів водогону. Відновили централізоване водопостачання для понад 1,5 мільйонів громадян. І сьогодні, як і кожного дня, сектори водопостачання, водовідведення, енергетичний сектор продовжують надавати послуги там, де це можливо. Для нас наразі головне завдання – це підготовка до осінньо-зимового періоду. Україна втратила від російських обстрілів майже 9 кВт електрогенерації. Основне технологічне обладнання водопровідно-каналізаційного господарства енергоємне, тому ми шукаємо джерела резервного електропостачання – дизельні, бензинові та газові генератори, сонячні електростанції, частотні перетворювачі. Ми готові і вдячні за будь-які види допомоги. У тому числі готові приймати обладнання напряму для наших підприємств як гуманітарну допомогу. Нещодавно наш парламент додав підприємства, які надають комунальні послуги, до переліку отримувачів гуманітарної допомоги. Ми вдячні кожному партнеру за допомогу. Вона допомагає українцям вижити та вибороти свободу. І сьогодні, і тим більше сьогодні, у часи жорстоких випробувань, ми плануємо своє майбутнє. Україна має багаторівневу систему стратегічного планування. Міністерство відновлення працює над синхронізацією планової документації з IT-рішенням. Наша мета – побудувати екосистему відновлення. Перший тип планувальних документів – це просторові плани, які пов'язані з електронною системою будівництва. Наступне – це плани розвитку та відновлення на національному та місцевому рівні. Вони містять пріоритетні проекти та будуть пов'язані з системою DREAM. Це єдина цифрова система управління відбудови. Останній тип планування – це державна стратегія регіонального розвитку до 2027 року, яку уряд оновив нещодавно. Наші секторальні політики будуть діяти за принципом Build Back Better. Ми орієнтуємося на людиноцентричних, екологічних та енергоефективних підходах. Міністерство відновлення постійно покращує умови для залучення інвесторів до відновлення. Ми усвідомлюємо важливість інвестора для довгострокового розвитку України. Адже важливо поступово переходити від нагальної гуманітарної підтримки до підтримки процесу відновлення. Над цим переходом ми вже системно співпрацюємо з агенціями ООН. Прозорість процесу відновлення ми забезпечимо закупівлями за правилами донорів та МФО, а також екосистемою DREAM. Міністерство відновлення вже має потужну мережу партнерів. Основними, звичайно, є її НЕФКО, ЄС, а також агентства Німеччини, Нідерландів, Франції, Данії та інших країн. Маючи поруч з собою таких партнерів, ми впевнено дивимося в наше майбутнє. Щиро дякую за можливість виступити.
Thank you, Irina. And we'll have time for questions at the end of this panel. I would like now to introduce David Alford, the WASH Cluster Coordinator for the last 2 years in Ukraine, who is going to present to us the context and challenges of humanitarian assistance. David, if you're online, or if you...
Thank you, Mariam. And I assume somebody is presenting the presentation.
We see you.
That's good.
Not yet your slide. Yeah, now we have both.
Excellent.
The floor is yours, David.
If we make a first click, what I will speak about is a little bit more of a focus on the humanitarian impacts of some of the things that the previous speakers have already mentioned. We are in an ongoing conflict, and we are seeing increased hostilities over 2024. Another click. And essentially, what you can see on this map is an indication of the geographic extent of that front line. Another click. The ongoing conflict is constantly making for regular waves, both of returns, but also displacements and evacuations because of the shifts in the front line. And another click. And of course, the socioeconomic impacts all along the frontline oblasts are significant, with big implications in terms of exacerbating pre-existing inequalities in those same areas, but also for the people who are displaced. The next slide. And again, we have already had mentioned the impacts or the risks of attacks on energy infrastructure and the knock-on impacts on water supply. There's another aspect to this, if we click again, in terms of risks to the environmental water resources. In many of the areas where the conflict is ongoing, these are also areas with significant industrial and pollution risks. If we click again, we also see a lot of vulnerability in the systems themselves, with many urban systems dependent on water piped in from other locations. And if we click again, around Kakov Reservoir, multiple settlements had depended on water drawn from the reservoir, whether through canals, direct pipelines, or other. And one more click. And of course, this has significant knock-on impacts on both vulnerable groups and social institutions in those same settlements, which risk ruptures in water supply, but also for the population more broadly throughout the country. If we go on, in terms of our priorities, we have a focus both on the utilities and the service providers in terms of supporting repairs, but also in terms of any interventions that can support reducing the operating costs or increasing system resilience where it's feasible. Another click. We also are trying to build the resilience of the communities themselves along the front line in developing water sources, alternative water sources, developing autonomous water sources for different institutions, but also reinforcing the capacities of responders to provide emergency water during shocks, engaging civil society to better integrate WASH aspects in the different activities that they do. And we're exploring how to support better market-based approaches to engage the private sector in those same settlements. If we click again, in terms of consistent challenges, and if we click, one of the consistent challenges is flexibility in terms of our partners' ability to adapt to a changing conflict, but also to be able to cover operations and maintenance costs for the emergency period. One of the challenges that we face consistently is our ability to develop some of those more durable solutions as an exit strategy for emergency operations. And in that sense, also a bit more flexibility in terms of providing more complete packages, both in communities and to service providers, to build up that aspect of resilience. If we click again, one of the continuous challenges is making sure we do have response capacity for those regular shocks, both in terms of frontline movements, but also in terms of larger environmental shocks along the lines of the destruction of dams that we have seen across the country. If we click again, integration into various other different programs, but also if we click again, the integration of the different streams of funding that are coming to support our sector at the local level. And this links to one of the speakers' earlier points on the strategy of regional development. One last click. Research to be able to inform the activities that we're doing, but also better link what we have developed from the humanitarian side with potential funding from other actors. In that sense, if we go to the next slide and click 3 times, what we have developed in Ukraine is a different structure, or a structure that seeks to bring these two aspects together. Not mixing mandates, but providing a functional cell that can translate between humanitarian actors and the larger sector donors. I think that's my time, and I look forward to questions. Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. And I would like to recall people online, if they want to ask questions, they can put them in the chat. Let me now welcome Director of a water utility. It's a name you've probably heard before, Zaporizhia. It's a regional Vodakanal, and he's going to tell us a bit more about, Vodakanal is a water utility, it's a name in Ukrainian. He's going to tell us a bit more about the challenges that he has faced during the last 2.5 years of conflict. Mr. Sergei Basansky, good afternoon. The floor is yours.
Доброго дня, шановні присутні. Перш за все, хочу подякувати директора Всесвітнього тижня водних ресурсів Сюзанну Холінг-Даффі та особисто Ніколаса Осборта за предоставлену можливість ознайомити вельмишановне товариство з нашим підприємством та розповісти про ті труднощі, з якими приходиться стикатись кожного дня. Облводоканал Запорізької обласної ради є комунальним підприємством, яке забезпечує населення Запорізької області послугами водопостачання та водовідведення. Підприємство займає монопольне становище на ринку надання вище наведених послуг та офіційно визнано об'єктом критичної інфраструктури. На кінець 2021 року підприємство налічувало 8 підрозділів по усій території Запорізької області. Вже не мало боргів заробітної плати, податків, електричної енергії. Розпочався сталий розвиток підприємства, впроваджувались новітні технології щодо очистки, підготовки питної води з поверхневого джерела, реалізовувалась стратегія економічної модернізації у сфері енергоефективності, обліку ресурсів, документообороту та звітності, економічного планування та тарифоутворення. І по деяким позиціям господарської діяльності, згідно бюлетеню НКРЄКП, облводоканал визнало лідером галузі за 2020-2021 рік. На початку 2022 року, у зв'язку зі збройною агресією Російської Федерації, 6 з 8 виробничих підрозділів підприємства майже за тиждень опинились в окупації. Органи прокуратури, поліції, Служби безпеки, персонал адміністрації був евакуйований з Запорізької області, і область перебувала під постійними ракетними ударами та артилерійськими обстрілами. Тобто почалася війна. В таких обставинах керівництво підприємства самостійно прийняло рішення залишити, зберегти контроль управління, продовжувати виконувати свої обов'язки відповідно до визначеного мобілізаційного завдання, яке полягало в безперебійному забезпеченні водопостачання населення. У зв'язку з втратою контролю над підрозділами та масовою міграцією населення, виручка за надані послуги значно знизилась та з червня 2022 року не перевищує 20-25%. Величезні затрати та ресурси, відсутність матеріалів для ремонту, відсутність автотракторної та спеціалізованої техніки для подальшого функціонування систем водопостачання та водовідведення Запорізького району, а це більше ніж 140 тисяч осіб, поставили КП «Облводоканал» у дуже скрутне становище. Фінансових ресурсів ледь вистачає на виплату заробітної плати та відповідних податків. В ході збройної агресії окупант привласнив купу машин спеціального призначення, за допомогою яких підприємство забезпечило експлуатацію водних об'єктів, водних та водно-каналізаційних об'єктів Запорізької області. Впродовж 2022 року, завдяки допомогі місії Міжнародного Червоного Хреста, у підприємства з'явились 2 водовози, екскаватор, аварійна машина та 2 мобільних установки для підготовки питної води, що дало можливість більш оперативно усувати аварійні ситуації. Велика подяка їм за цю підтримку. У 2023 році було підписано меморандум про співпрацю між ЮНІСЕФ та КП «Облводоканал», і цей документ надихнув підприємство надію на нове життя. Колектив КП «Облводоканал» та мешканці Запорізької області висловлює слова щирої подяки за суттєву поміч, яку надало ЮНІСЕФ. І вже сьогодні, у 2024 році, можливо констатувати, що величезна та наполеглива сумісна праця наших організацій дала позитивний результат. Насамперед, це безумовно поліпшення централізованого водопостачання на територіях Вільнянська, Лежина, Новомиколаївка. Більш ніж на 30% скоротилась чисельність поривів та витоків на магістральних та розподільчих водогонах. Насосні станції водопостачання та водовідведення отримали нові насосні агрегати, що призвело до сталої роботи без виходу основного обладнання для ремонту. Аварійні бригади забезпечені одягом, обладнанням та інструментом. Це для підприємства дуже важливо. Впродовж 2024 року КП «Облводоканал», місія Червоного Хреста та ЮНІСЕФ продовжує плідну співпрацю. Окрім заходів, направлених на ремонт та відновлення об'єктів, які постраждали від збройної агресії, це будівлі, споруди, резервуари питної води, мережі водопостачання та водовідведення. Приділяється багато уваги щодо формування фундаменту для подальшого сталого розвитку за європейськими стандартами. Підприємство ініціювало, а ЮНІСЕФ підтримало комплекс заходів, направлених на впровадження системи SAP, провідного програмного рішення для управління бізнес-процесами, формування системи диспетчеризації, встановленням новітних приладів обліку з дистанційною передачею даних на сервер за допомогою системи SCADA. Безумовно, взаємодія SCADA та SAP спрощує ефективну обробку даних, інформаційних потоків у рамках всього підприємства та гарантує сучасне управління, контроль та оптимізоване виробництво питної води з високим прибутковою реалізацією. Загалом на теперішній час у підприємства існують 2 проблеми, які потребують вирішення на рівні партнерсько-донорської допомоги та державного бюджету, а саме конче потрібна автотракторна спеціалізована техніка, яка надасть можливість самостійно виконувати будівельні роботи без залучення сторонніх будівельних організацій, та стала фінансова підтримка на виплату сформувавшихся вже боргів заробітної плати, податків, електричної енергії та придбаної питної води. Дякую вам всім за увагу та допомогу у вирішенні проблемних питань.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basanski. Once again, if you have questions, let's keep it for after the next and last presentation of this session about humanitarian assistance with Ina from UNICEF giving us maybe a larger overview of the situation. Please, Ina.
Thank you so much, Marion. Thank you for opportunity to summarize what you've seen and here. Unfortunately, maybe not could understand the whole scope of presentations. But I'm intent to show you, as Nicholas already said, that Ukraine is in a very specific and special situation which is difficult to apprehend from outside. We faced with the particularly brutal war, with population and civil infrastructure targeted in the big way, and the life continues still in Ukraine. You will be surprised because the business operating, our water operators trying to keep their efforts and make their best to continue the water supply in Ukraine. Here you can see the PREVA condition of the water sector in Ukraine, decades of lacking with the investments into the sector, absence of restoration and rehabilitation works for networks inside of the big cities. For your kind understanding, only 70% of Ukrainian population, according to the national report, has access to the centralized water supply, and only 60 of them has access to the centralized sewage systems. Within this slide, I would like you to present the data from Rapid Damage Assessment Report about the amount of money which we are required for restoration of the water sector. And you could see that only since of 2022 till 2023, the damages cost $4 billion. The whole needs for rehabilitation of the sector as of today cost us $11.6 billion. The biggest problem here in Ukraine is non-revenue and its cost, because the outdated infrastructure, leakages, constant shellings affect the infrastructure, and non-revenue losses is incredible. And if you could see on the slide the cost for that non-revenue, I guess this is quite a good amount to restore one small city in Ukraine, but the reality, what you can see. Also, the massive attack on hydraulic infrastructure of Ukraine, which has affected not only access to water, but also our energy needs in Ukraine. As it was said before, we lost 9 gigawatts of electricity. We cannot do it ourselves. We're trying to restore it through decentralized electrical supplies, but still we're faced with a big lack of energy to support the basic needs of entities to be able to provide water supply in Ukraine. Physical damages, which we have currently, structured in two ways. It's like damage affecting infrastructure, civil infrastructure, water utilities, and from another point of view, we have Kakhovka Dam destruction, which also affected a lot of people. It's approximately 1 million people who lost their access to safe drinking water and sanitation. Utilities were affected on the whole south of Ukraine. 6 oblasts were affected. It's a crucial situation right over there and still needs emergency response. Together with Kakhovka Dam destruction, it brings us with environmental threats, a lot of toxic pollutions, a lot of problem which we faced in terms of alternative water supplies. And according to the national data and international data, till 2050, Ukraine is going to import water, drinking water, to its internal consumption. But we need to understand that the life is moving, and we need to have that nexus, which still progressing in Ukraine, given the situation with emergency. Still, 9.6 million people needs access to safe water supply, and we're still facing with increasing of cost for recovery and for emergency and restoration. But here is a unique situation where you can have that transition, that nexus to the smooth development of the country. Within the emergency support, we still need to provide kits, water distribution, to create water points. With key challenges we faced in Ukraine, it's about volunteering situation, it's about decrease in resources and incomes, yeah, and the opportunity we have is to keep attention around Ukraine, mobilize resources, and mobilize the forces who actually could help us to implement all the things we have in Ukraine. Given the early recovery situation, the total recovery cost and priorities for 2023 estimated by $241.9 million, while the efforts should be doing in Ukraine focused on ensuring water sanitation sector provision, should also be effort to prepare a project pipeline for the recurrent further investment aligned to the recommended phase and approaches. And the biggest challenge for Ukraine as of now is our EU accession, because we still intend to be a part of EU Commission and EU family. So you can see the situation is crucial, and we are not matching the standards which are right now established within the Europe standards. Non-revenue water comparing to other countries, you can see the difference between neighborhood countries and Ukraine. Cost recovery for water utilities, you can see our estimation in Europe, in Ukraine. Now our tariff structure is not allow us to cover the basic operational needs of water utilities. That's why we are trying to support Ukrainian water utilities with outside donor support and investment support. The biggest challenge here is urban sewage systems and water treatment, because according to national standards, only 2/3 of samples met the basic national standards of Ukraine after treatment. And the last but not least challenge here is a grievance redressal mechanism, because you cannot ensure proper services if you're not connecting to your consumers. So we're working around the strategy how to improve the grievance redressal mechanism and be sure that the consumers can somehow impact their water and sanitation services. Thank you so much. Within that link, you can see how to support UNICEF with its intent to support Ukrainian people and children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ina. So we are a bit late with our schedule, but I think we have time for one question for the first panel. We will have much more time let's not be too optimistic. More time at the end of the session for a proper open house, both on humanitarian and recovery, because recovery is what's coming next. So if someone has a question for one of our panelists, raise your hand and we'll bring you the microphone. And our Ukrainian speakers, they can hear you in English online. And we can translate here if you want. Thank you very much. And please introduce yourself for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jean Lepec from Action Against Hunger. We are working also in Ukraine. I wanted to know more about the funding issues. We know that the conflict may last for pretty long. What is the balance between humanitarian funds and development donors in the specific context, and what are your challenges in terms of funding this Nexus phase? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like probably to give the floor to David to tell us a bit more about humanitarian funding for the next years. And Nicola, if you want to reflect on the funding for development.
So I think what is clear is that we are a little bit better funded than the financial tracking system tells us. But what we also do see is that we do have a decreasing number of WASH partners who are engaged in the more emergency aspects of our response. That emergency capacity for the shocks that we need to maintain for a prolonged conflict. In that sense, there's a challenge in terms of capacity, but in terms of activities, one of the constant or frequent bottlenecks for us is where we are allowed to go to with the humanitarian funding and where we are not. And quite often what we find is that we find ourselves in situations where we need to do more. We do investigations, feasibility studies, but we are not always able to mobilize that funding from the humanitarian side for the implementation of a medium-term solution, knowing that reconstruction is further down the line. And I'm sure Nicolas can speak on the challenges from the other side. Over.
Thanks. 2-3 points, Jean. Good to be back in contact with you despite of the distance. For the humanitarian funding, I would say the main issue is the visibility, predictability. When I think we are navigating between $200 and $300 million per year invested in WASH humanitarian. And at the end of 2023, we were thinking about downsizing. And then it turns out that 2024, in terms of emergency, was even worse than 2023 and the funding raised. And it's also linked to the political agenda of the key donors of Ukraine. And so it's the lack of visibility, and it makes our planning difficult on how much can we take and how we prioritize things according to the money available. On the recovery side, we have, and we will hear from them, IFIs and government agencies coming with loans, but then the sector, the utilities are facing debt, as we heard from Zaporizhia, a huge financial problems that makes those loans very difficult to implement. So there are complex arrangements to make with the Ministry of Finance, and it delays the start of the recovery projects. These are, in my view, the two main financial issues for the humanitarian response and the recovery. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Nicolas. I would like to thank our speakers for the first panel, and let's applaud them. And I will give the floor now to Ina to introduce the second panel, focusing on the recovery agenda.
Thank you, Marion, and panelists, for enriching showcase to take us for a speed up about how the situation in Ukraine stands right now. Now, as we move to a parallel vertical of the recovery agenda, I would like to take a pause and appreciate that it's not just about us as organizational and institutional stakeholders working in the sector. The onus of the impact bears on the shoulders of our next generation. And I would like to invite Jan Champion, who will show us the young thoughts on the recovery in Ukraine. Nastya, welcome.
Thank you, Inna, and thank you all attending this session today for giving us the floor. So, in every country, young people is the power for progress, especially for Ukraine, while we're defending our freedom. Every year, young people have more opportunities to influence the future. Since the beginning of the war, one of the crucial problems is the environmental aspect. To the pollution of water sources and surrounding territories were added new challenges, such as water supply of citizens and maintaining the quality of water. Water infrastructure is often attacked, and water resources are continued to be polluted. In this session, we have been reminded about the Kakhovka tragedy, which caused lots of deaths and destruction across entire communities. Hundreds of thousands of people have been left without water and agricultural lands without irrigation. This tragedy once again reminds us the value of every water source and how important it is to save them. As a part of UNICEF's Upshift program, my team is making a contribution to saving the main water artery of our city, Rose River, which also supplies water to many other administrative units. Within our project Save Rose, we managed to realize some activities, but we are still on the way to our goal. And now, I would like to invite you to see the short film to showcase our efforts.
Сьогодні будемо прибирати першу частину узбережжя нашої річки. Це зона цієї набережної під дерев'яним мостом. І якщо встигнемо, ще по той бік моста. Тут у нас є перчатки, сміттєві мішки, усе потрібне.
Прийде якийсь дощ, і все воно буде плавати вздовж берегів нашої річки. Річка важлива для нашого міста, адже з неї робиться і водозабір для нашого міста з населенням у 250 тисяч осіб, і для такого великого міста, як Умань.
Ми ходили до дамби, і там дійсно було багато мертвої риби. Це прям для мене було шоком. Трохи образливо виходить, що в нас є річка, інколи є бажання навіть купатися, але можливості немає.
Зараз усе на часі, адже життя продовжується, і якщо ми не будемо вирішувати це зараз, потім це може бути неможливо вирішити зараз, це зробити набагато легше.
Є два джерела забруднення нашої річки. Побутові відходи і забруднення від наших великих підприємств. Нам допомагає міська рада, обласна рада, і разом з підприємствами в нас вже планується встановлення очисних систем.
Мені дуже сподобалося цей раз. Тільки дізнаюся, то буду долучатися.
Let's applause to Anastasia that Inspire Upship initiative. So now we are moving to our recovery agenda, and I would like to present our next panelists. It's Mr. Evgen Fedorenko, Deputy Minister for Ministry of Environmental Protection, Mr. Alexander Sirkevich, Mayor of Mykolaiv, here with us, Ms. Mariuka Porvari, who is online. She's Senior Expert for EU Commission Director General at Neighborhood and Environment Negotiations Ukraine Service. Peter Sapanosh, Senior Engineer, Water Division, European Investment Bank. So, unfortunately, Mr. Evgeny Fedorenko, due to personal circumstances, couldn't attend here with us. So we will show a pre-recorded video with his speech. Thank you. Please show.
Greetings to the conference participants. Today we are talking about water as the key to the future for our children, the key to the survival of life on the planet. At the same time, 6th of June 2023 become a new starting point for the life of Ukraine. The Russians committed the largest act of terrorism since the Second World War. They blew up the Kakhovka Dam. Ukraine lost 18 cubic kilometers of water. This amount of water would have been enough for the entire world for 2 days. As a result of Russia's actions, 1.6 million people in 164 communities in Ukraine were left without a water supply. The most critical situation was in Mykolaiv, Kherson, Kryvyi Rih, Marganets, Nikopol, Tomakivka and Pokrov. Has anyone ever seen towns and villages where people walk the streets searching for drinking water? Unfortunately, this is the reality in Ukraine. From the first days of the disaster, we started looking for solutions to provide water to the people. Today, 64% of the population in the Kherson region and 82% in the Mykolaiv region have access to the centralized water supply. However, 42% of our country's territory still needs more comprehensive and long-term solutions. We have 9 regions where immediate action is needed. These are Dnipro, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Lugansk, Mykolaiv, Kirovohrad, Odessa, Kharkiv and Kherson regions. So, on 20th of August this year, the government of Ukraine approved the program of integrated water supply for the territories affected by military operations for the period up to 2030. The program provides for the annual transfer of 800 million cubic meters of water to low water regions and the accumulation of 1.6 billion cubic meters of water reserves. This will provide water for 3.9 million people and up to 9 million people after the deoccupation of our territories. With the implementations of the program, 1.5 million Ukrainians will have access to water by the end of 2024. By the end of 2025, another 2 million Ukrainians will have access to water. In the framework of the program, we need to build more than 3,000 kilometers of new water supply lines, build or renovate more than 250 pumping stations, repair 20 hydropower facilities, and drill 460 wells over the next 7 years. The estimated cost of all these works is around $1.3 billion. In this case, Ukraine cannot succeed without the help of international partners. We are grateful to UNICEF, which has already provided us with $67 million in aid for 2022 to 2024. This includes equipment, chemicals for water treatment, renovation and drilling of wells, delivery of drinking water, etc. We have already signed an agreement with the European Investment Bank to finance the construction of a water supply system to Mykolaiv. The project will start next year. We are grateful to all our international partners who stand with Ukraine today. We appreciate the fact that we have the support of the entire world from the very first days. We can confidently say that we have many friends and like-minded people helping us to survive. The efforts of the majority are the best guarantee of achieving a common goal. Glory to Ukraine.
Okay, and now employing some tunnel vision, let's move to Mykolaiv. And to benefit our audience, let me emphasize to the role being played by Mykolaiv city in a case example of melting pot of key stakeholders and water sanitation sector in Ukraine. It's a playground or battlefield, depend how you're looking on it, of both humanitarian and development interventions. And at that point, I would like to invite Mr. Alexander Sirkevich to present the situation.
Hello, my name is Alexander Sienkiewicz. I am a mayor of Mykolaiv. I don't think 5 minutes will be enough to describe the situation in the city of Mykolaiv and in Ukraine at all. But anyway, I will try to do it. I would like to emphasize one thing. I heard a lot of from different people in different countries the word conflict. We never had any conflicts with Russia. So actually it's invasion, it's a war, but we never had any conflicts. 85% of people in the city of Mykolaiv are Russian speaking. Actually, I think in Russian, so it's my native language. So, but as a public servant, I actually use Ukrainian. So, where is Mykolaiv? Mykolaiv is the city on the south of Ukraine, 500,000 city on the south of Ukraine. Yesterday in the evening I was there. Today I'm here, so it takes you about 6 hours to get to the Chisinau airport and then to any part of the world. This city is now situated 73 kilometers from the Dnieper River. Actually, I would like you to remember this image because this image shows the nearest city of Kherson, which was occupied. Actually, Mykolaiv got a status of city hero because we stopped the Russian invasion on the south of Ukraine. Together with citizens and military personnel, we stopped Russians and pushed them back to Kherson. And then, after counteroffensive actions, they were moved to the left bank of the Dnieper River, where they are now. So 73 kilometers is the distance to the river of Dnipro, to Russians, and to our water supply, water intake. Actually, before the war, we had Dnieper River, the biggest river in Ukraine, as our raw water source. April 12th, and our city actually stays on the Salzburg River. It's also very important to understand that we can't use the water from the river because it's too close to the Black Sea and the water is really salty near our city, and we are unable to desalinize it using our water treatment plant. So before the full-scale invasion, our city was almost 500,000 city. Then in the worst times of Russian invasion, we had like half of it. And today the citizens are coming back, and also we have a lot of IDPs from the Kherson region and Kherson itself, because the city is under constant bombardments every day, and people are moving to the city of Mykolaiv. About water infrastructure, you see the real picture. Russians on April 12, 2022, destroyed pipes. Actually, we have two pipes like this. You see them on the picture, 1.4 meter, with a diameter of 1.4 meter, which brought us 160 cubic meters per day to the city of Mykolaiv from the river of Dnipro. Since that time, so they decided to ruin these pipes, thinking that we will use them to send troops to Kherson, and left us since that time without drinking water from Dnieper River. As an emergency response, in 1 month, so you can imagine 1 month we lived totally without water. So we brought water by the water trucks from the nearest cities, and also bottled water from the city of Odessa. And in 1 month, we ran the water supply, the technical water supply, from the Salzburg River, which our city stays on, to use it at least for the toilets, to take a shower, but we still don't have drinking water. So there was information that Mykolaiv now has the drinking water supply. Yes, it is, but it's not drinking water. So we can drink it. As an emergency response, we decided to drill boreholes. Actually, we have them more than 250 now, and together with different partners from Denmark, from Japan, from European Union, we equip them with the osmosis cleaning system and give this water for free. So you see the image of a water spot where people can go with a 5-liter plastic bottles, refill them, and bring them home. Actually, it's in 21st century. This is the only way to get a fresh water to home now in the city of Mykolaiv. Actually, we repaired those pipes after the occupation of Kherson. But then Russians, as you know, destroyed Kakhovka Dam, which caused destruction of our intake. And actually, they constantly bombarded it too, so we are unable to run the water from the Dnieper River now. As an idea, we decided, together with EIB and consultants from EGIS, we decided to use water from the Salzburg River, but up north where the water is not salty. So it's also about 60 kilometers to bring it. We need to build a new pipe, which also was mentioned before. As a second action, we decided to renovate our water reservoir, which was used in Soviet Union times, and now we don't use it, but it will give us additional 3 million cubic meters of water for the different circumstances. And also, as you understand, we run the salty water in our system, and this is a real photo of our pipes. This destruction was caused by the salt in our water, and we also have to change the whole system inside. So also together with cooperation with Denmark and NEFCO, E5P, we're also changing the pipes inside the city, under the ground. Actually, sometimes we call our city Little Venice, because we have a lot of leaks, like up to 40 leaks per day in the different places of the city. Together with EIB, also before the war, we started the project on a wastewater treatment plant, and we also still in the times of war we do it. We also run it, and also we need to change our water treatment plant to be able to clean the water from the Salzburg River, which is also a matter of cooperation with EIB now. So also we understand that we need to do this treatment plant resilient, so it will be like a modular, just to avoid full destruction of the attacks of Russians. And for sure, pipes and pumps are very important, but the more important is to have people, human capital, which we are trying to prepare and to save together with Mykolaiv Water Hub, non-government organization created by Hannah Montavon, who is here, and established in Berlin. Together with them, we are creating the physical space for Water Knowledge Center in Mykolaiv. Also, we have master program and short-term course Water Leaders. Also, we prepare children and scholarship program Girls in STEM for Mykolaiv. As you see, these are also real girls from Mykolaiv. And together with our partners, we are looking for new technologies, new methods of water cleaning, and new experience. Also, a lot of people, Russia spent like billions of dollars to promote Ukraine as a state of corruption and to avoid our country to be a part of the European Union. In the city of Mykolaiv, we run together with European Anti-Corruption Initiative under umbrella of Denmark. We run a lot of anti-corruption initiatives. We were the first Ukrainian city who promoted the website where we collect all the data, all the information about international help. You can find and download all the information, how much, where it is, how much left, and everything else. And also together with Ernst & Young, we are changing our structure on the procurement procedures, and Deloitte made integrity assessment of our water supply company. And also we are creating now advisory board for this company, just to make it the work transparent and understandable for our partners. Thank you for your attention. I'm here if you have any ideas for future cooperation, not only with some materials or something, but more with intelligence and some important stuff, smart stuff. We are ready to go with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander, Mayor of Mykolaiv. I'm strongly encourage you to use this QR code and try the website which been developed, because it shows excellent example of being transparent to show the whole scope of support being provided to city and its utilities. Actually, really try it, because we are strongly sure that this showcase could be implemented within the whole cities in Ukraine, and I guess we are on the way to do it. So, and how is the situation with the our EU, our finance situation with the utilities, municipal utilities, our Nexus process with the Humanitarian-Development Nexus. I would like to hear from Mr. Peter. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Good afternoon. Happy to be here on behalf of the European Investment Bank. I'll just give you a few highlights of what we have been doing in this context. I was very pleased to hear from Mr. Mayor that EIB was mentioned in a positive context. EIB has been present in the Ukrainian water sector since 2007, not just in the water sector, but in generally. We have invested around 7 billion in Ukraine. Around 20% was committed to municipalities and the environmental sector. I don't have the exact figure for the water sector. Following the outbreak of this invasion, then as we are owned by the EU member states, it was obvious that EIB mobilized the available resources. So in 2022, it was around almost 700 million. It was committed to emergency funding of Ukrainian infrastructure. And then the following 2 years, an additional 1.6 billion is committed also for the recovery, to support recovery efforts. One of the Mykolaiv was mentioned, and so under a previous framework loan, we are currently financing 4 operations in the water sector: Lunds, Mariupol, Rivne, and Mykolaiv. Some of them ongoing, like Mykolaiv active. Some, unfortunately, has been sort of hibernated a little bit because there are various impacts from this because of the war. The most recent effort of EIB is that it's so-called EU for Ukraine, where the bank by the member states have been authorized to set up a trust fund and manage that trust fund to help the recovery of Ukraine. This is currently the initial pledges. They were 400 million, sorry, and we expect a lot more to be committed by the member states. Also, linked to this effort, EIB, from its own resources, committed another 100 million euros for technical assistance, because a lot of these recovery efforts, they have to be properly planned, have to be put it into a context, so that requires a lot of studies. So that's important. The EU, there's another effort recently, just as recent, I think a few months ago, that's very specifically for the water sector. EIB approved an operation. It's the Ukraine Water Recovery Framework Loan. That's a 200 million euro envelope. Usually we don't finance up to 50% of something, but here, because of the emergency situation, we are able to finance 100%. So that facility is open. We are working together with GIZ on the technical assistance side, but we will also be able to mobilize significant technical assistance from this EU for Ukraine facility. Now, I only speak on behalf of EIB, but we are aware that similar significant efforts are ongoing from the World Bank, from EBRD, KfW as well, gearing up, and we should not ignore, I think there's going to be a speech on that, how Ukraine's planned EU accession will be able to unlock significant grant funding for this recovery effort. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, perhaps. I mean, every conflict, every bad situation has a silver lining. Here, the silver lining is that we know that Ukraine has a long outstanding, a long backlog of investments in the water sector. Now, with this money, these grants, loans, other funding is coming Ukraine's way. This is not just building back the same, but there will be a possibility to build back a lot better, to build to a world-class infrastructure, which will bring, let's say, the lot desired efficiency in terms of energy consumption or non-revenue water, for example. So the key challenge here is, from EIB's perspective, is that to see a well-coordinated effort in this spending of these funds, because, for example, we know that the energy infrastructure is also damaged. So without electricity, you cannot have water supply. So that we would like to see that, and also it has never existed in our thinking before, but now it's obvious that whatever the outcome will be, this war, the threat from Russia will be there. So it's a very unique situation that whatever is built, it has to be built with redundancy, security in mind, which, for example, in a modern European utilities, it does not exist. But, for example, we know that in the Baltic states, in Poland, it's increasingly a thinking in for all critical infrastructure investments. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peter, for that comprehensive overview. And now we saw and heard the position of Humanitarian-Development Nexus process. And let's hear from EU Commission, Ms. Mariuka, our perspective on EU accession. Ms. Mariuka, over to you.
Thank you. I had one slide, if I could get that on. Thank you. Yes, esteemed colleagues and dear audience, I hear a bit of an echo. Is it also on my ears, or is there a sound problem?
It's good in the room, Mariuka.
Okay, good. Then I'll just continue. So, esteemed colleagues and dear audience, warm regards from Brussels, and many thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to speak in this important and timely event. In my presentation, I want to raise 3 points from the EU perspective. Firstly, in today's discussion, Ukraine's water resilience has been perceived through 2 different lenses: humanitarian response and alignment with EU standards as a part of Ukraine's accession path. I want to stress that as long as Russia continues its illegal and unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine, both approaches are necessary and must be parallel strands of work. During the last months, Russia has ruthlessly destroyed critical infrastructure in Ukraine. The recent attacks against energy infrastructure have also had devastating impacts on water supply and sanitation. And we must respond to immediate needs of people whose life and health are endangered due to lack of clean water and sanitation by providing emergency solutions such as alternative power sources. At the same time, we can keep in mind the longer horizon and Ukraine's EU membership aspiration. If planned smartly, these emergency solutions provided for the immediate needs can in some cases be first steps in modernizing infrastructure towards EU requirements. There will be many more steps on that path. but taking the first step is already a good start. My second point concerns the implementation of EU legislation. EU's water legislation is very extensive, consisting of over 10 directives and regulations. This shows how imperative clean and sufficient water resources are considered in the EU for our lives, health, and economies. Adopting EU legislation is only the beginning. After that, concrete actions, namely investments in water infrastructure and measures in sectors like industry and agriculture, are needed. During the last years, Ukraine has made good progress in adopting EU water legislation. A good example is river basin management plans required by the Water Framework Directive, which have now been drafted for all river basins in Ukraine. The plans include assessment of the status of water resources, water quality and quantity scenarios for the future, and based on that, list of investment and measures needed to achieve good ecological status of watercourses. However, without the next steps, meaning investments and other necessary measures, the river basin management plans remain just a paper exercise. Ukraine's main challenge is not the adoption of EU legislation, but its implementation. The current weak implementation is due to lack of resources, both financial and human. This needs to be addressed by improving financial sustainability of water supply and sanitation, and by continuous capacity building both in administration and in water utilities. My third point concerns financial sustainability, which is one of the root causes for the implementation gap. One of the most challenging issues for Ukraine's water sector is water tariffs, which are currently way too low to cover costs of water supply and treatment. The problem existed already before the war, but has worsened during it. Water utilities have not been allowed to increase tariffs, and at the same time, prices for electricity, water purification chemicals, and many other essential consumables have increased sharply. This has put Ukrainian water utilities into a desperate situation. Equipment such as pumps or water treatment systems cannot be sustainably operated and maintained if there is no continuous and sufficient financing for their maintenance. This root cause needs to be solved before EU's water legislation can be implemented in Ukraine, not only on paper, but also in practice. It is also a prerequisite for any financially sustainable investments in Ukraine's water sector, whether Ukrainian or international. It is important to note that when raising tariffs towards cost recovery, it is possible to protect vulnerable population groups by adopting compensation mechanisms. This is essential as access to clean water is a basic human right. Finally, I want to congratulate Ukraine for your Independence Day yesterday and the official opening of negotiations on Ukraine's accession to the EU in June. It will be a long journey, but the EU and its member states will support you and stand by your side. Slava Ukraini!
And thank you for that process and speech of bringing us to actually reality and our further hard pathway for EU accession. But within this, I would like to open floor for our discussion, reflections, ideas, maybe good decisions. And I'm going to pick up one question from audience and one question from online participants. So if you'd like to ask the question, please raise your hand and we will provide you with microphone. Anyone, please? Quite hard topic, I know, but let's do our reflections. What do you think? No? Yeah, thank you. Marion, please present yourself again, and we will try to pick you up.
Thank you for being
patient.
Thank you very much. So again, Jean Lapeg, Action Against Hunger, and it's to start the discussion. I wanted to discuss a little the the advocacy point about all that, because there's obviously a violation of the human rights. And I wanted to know what is the positioning of the country, of the UN, of the clusters around that. There are some tools also to push for that. For example, there is the call to action of the WASH roadmap. So it's a call that has been signed by nearly 200 members, including UN agencies and the Global WASH Cluster, etc. And maybe it could be good also to have Ukraine signing the call like Slovenia did, or like France did, or like Swiss did. So it's just to highlight a little this tool, this advocacy, which is one of the assets of the response, and to know a little more about that.
Thank you so much. Colleagues online, would you like to pick up the question? Maybe Nicholas and...
Why not? I mean, thank you for that. I mean, we were hoping for some concrete takeaways from the session, and I guess this is one as well, to be discussed with the government on how to fit in and under what narrative. And yeah, it makes sense in Ukraine to continue. You heard about the partnerships, like we heard from Mykolaiv, for instance, the amount of partners involved on the mayor. So this call to action could really help as well to strengthen the partnership, and not just for financial aspect, but also technical aspect, creativity, and thinking out of the box to make the best of this recovery, aligned with the principle of build back better and greener. Thank you for that, Jean.
Thank you very much. Any more questions from the room or question online? Yeah, but David answers that question online. Maybe a question for Irina from Ministry of Infrastructure. Please say yes if you can understand me, if you have translation. Yeah, very good. From the ministry point of view, Ministry of Infrastructure, what do you think can be improved, or what is missing in the support you're receiving from different sides at the moment? Whether it's in terms of support or in terms of coordination or technical assistance to the government?
Yes. Звичайно, що ворог продовжує щодня знищувати нашу інфраструктуру. І село за селом, місто за містом, він залишає після себе згарище. Чи достатня допомога? Україна тримається. Україна живе та захищається. І ми розуміємо, що попереду великі випробовування. І майбутня зима – це для нас зараз найбільше випробовування. Наразі потреба лише в обладнанні для резервного електропостачання складає близько 746 МВт. І орієнтовна потреба – це 170 мільйонів євро. Непокрита потреба в помповому обладнанні, трубопроводах, запірній арматурі і різноманітних засобах для очищення води. І я вірю, що нам допоможуть, і ми будемо вдячні кожному, хто нас підтримує по цілому світу. Дякую.
Let me support you with translation who was not able to understand. Ms. Irina told that Ukraine faced with big challenges in terms of continuous shellings, damages, and destroying of current infrastructure which still exists in Ukraine. But the most and the biggest challenge for this period of time, it's a coming winter. And we need 760 megawatts of electricity with the different supplies. It's cost us 1.7 million euros or 17 million euros. And now, also in parallel, we have lack of equipment for water utilities, lack of pipes, pumps, wells, and different water treatment chemicals, which will definitely support water utilities in its operational cost. Because, again, tariff structure in Ukraine are not covering the operational cost for utilities. So we are happy to accept all possible support which we can get. With that, thank you for your future support, for your existing support, and we will try to do our best.
Thank you, Ina, for the translation. We're coming towards the end of our session. I think we had a quite comprehensive overview from all the parties involved in Ukraine, from humanitarian development actors, municipality, water utilities, and government, European Commission. Thank you all very much again, especially for attending on a Sunday afternoon. Thank you very much. If you have some more questions, I think you can always reach out to us. The link was shared, I think, at one point with a QR code. Yep. Otherwise, I'm sure people supporting online will give you back our contact, and don't hesitate to reach out to us in the futures. And maybe let's go to the closing of this session and closing of the day.
Yeah, before conclusion remarks, let's hear from another young champion, future professional, hopefully in water sector recovery, Marta, who will provide us with her thoughts on the panel which we held today.
Welcome, Marta.
Thank you, Ina. Dear conference participants, my name is Marta. I'm 16 years old, and I'm also a part of the Upshift program, and my team is working on ecological hygiene project. Yeah. Today I want to speak for Ukrainian youngs about the importance of clean water. Recent events have shown how war affects our water. The Kakhovka Dam was destroyed by water in June 2023, causing serious flooding and pollution of water in the region. For us, water is not just for life. It's a symbol of our strength and hope. Clean water means life, health, and dignity. We can accept water becoming a danger instead of a source of life. We must work to ensure that water remains clean and available for all Ukrainians. Thank you for your support.
Thank you all for being with us today within this session, and I would like to pass the floor to our host, Mr. Nicholas Osbert, for the conclusion words.
Thank you so much, Ina, and well done, Ina and Marion. You did really great. Thanks for that. So to all participants, thank you for your attendance. As you could hear from the various interventions, the nexus in Ukraine is a reality. We have this large-scale emergency and even larger-scale recovery. You heard the numbers from EIB, and that is one IFI. This war is a disaster for the country. At the same time, in the sector, water and sanitation, it prompts the government and its partners to accelerate the reforms. The sector really follows a build back better and greener principles for the recovery. This is for the country and also to meet the demanding standards of the EU directives on water and on the environment. For instance, the attack on electrical supply prompted mayors, directors of utility to adopt energy saving right away, alternative power sources, solar, and lower the energy consumption. And this is happening on the ground. The attacks on hydraulic works prompted the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Ministry of Environment develop a flagship water resource management program for all the regions in the frontline area. And this is also reality. It has just been approved. You could witness the level of implication and creativity that it takes for a mayor like in Mykolaiv, one of the frontline cities, to address the critical situation. And also, I think he leads by example in terms of partnerships, able to maneuver with the humanitarian stakeholders and the development partners for his city. You could hear from the EU perspective, this EU accession in the sector particularly is a long path, tariff issues, regulation, legal enforcement, monitoring systems, but we have a strong motivation from the country and also a great technical assistance being deployed collectively by the humanitarian and the development partners. Thanks for your inputs in the crowd. I mean, that call for action is a good takeaway. We need more of this. So really do reach out. We need your energy, your out-of-the-box thinking for programming in Ukraine. And finally, I'm really happy that we hear from the Ukrainian youth. Congrats to you for your interventions. You are the hope of Ukraine and not only for Ukraine. And your consciousness on the environmental aspects it's really inspiring to us. Unfortunately, behind this devastating war, there are critical issues linked to climate changes, which require massive adaptation. So you bring hope for this even more important agenda. With this, I also would like to thank the colleagues from UNICEF behind the scene, Karishma, who took on her to organize all of this, Ina, Marion, Ilya, and many others, and to all the participants. This is just one milestone. Really do reach out. We have information, contact specifics, and we hope we can continue this dialogue on the basis of the sessions of today's session. And we have plenty of data to share. This is open source, so really very happy to share, to open our books so that you can come join the efforts of recovery and emergencies in Ukraine for the water and sanitation sector. Thank you so much. Wishing you a good rest of the World Water Week. Thank you.
Indeed, leaving this session, let's reflect how we can bring sustainable solution for the future water supply, not only for Ukraine, but for all countries who are facing with the crisis. And thank you for being a part of World Water Week 2024 with Ukraine, and we hope you'll contribute this important conversation through all the week. Thank you.